I would like to welcome you back. And now we have the MIT Technology Review, the 10 Breakthrough Top 10. I would like to call to the stage Mr. Ted Hu, Senior Manager of Licensing, MIT Technology Review. Mr. Here, please. Thank you.
All right, Kalispera, everyone. How are you doing? Awake? Yes? How's your first day of EmTech been? Good, excellent. All right, so once again, my name is Ted Hu. I'm with MIT Technology Review. I, along with my colleague Nico, oversee all of the international editions of the magazine, as well as the conferences. And I'd like to present to you today one of our biggest and arguably most interesting projects. This is the first presentation of the 10 breakthrough technologies in the world. So our editor, executive editor Neil is out in South by Southwest, but he presents it in 2 days. So usually our editors are out and about covering AI, medical, environment and everything. And in this day and age, a lot of things change really, really fast. So there's a lot of information out there from a lot of news outlets. The point of the 10 breakthroughs is to really help us kind of predict the future. The goal is to direct us and to help us kind of see and be prepared for what the world has in store for us. So, let's begin. All right, so who are we? So MIT Technology Review is a magazine founded at MIT. We started in 1899, and while we are backed and supported by MIT, we are editorially independent. So what that means is we write about whatever we want to. And generally that means it's about tech and society, basically how is technology changing the environment, economies, policies around the world. And so we kind of skip the small stuff, the incremental stuff. We write about big things and big ideas. We publish online every single day. We have a magazine that comes out 6 times a year. We also have newsletters with vertical topics that you can subscribe to, and they're absolutely wonderful. And then, of course, we have our conferences, Innovators Under 35. If anybody is under 35, please do apply. It's quite wonderful. So, what are the 10 breakthrough technologies? This project started in 2001. As I mentioned, the goal was to try to help predict the future, to see what's to come. 24 years later, we're still doing it. So if you ask our journalists, they could probably give you a little bit better criteria, but I can give you a high level of how these technologies are selected. So we basically need to pinpoint something that has changed our lives very rapidly, whether that's on your phone, whether that's how governments do business, it's whether how education is accessed, everything like that. Basically, our editors compile a list, they highlight the technologies that they've seen through the year, and then they talk for a very long time, as we know journalists do. And then they select the list finally, and then this is what is published. So it runs a range of different kinds of fields, all through sustainability, to policy, to internet. It's quite an interesting list. So when you are in the business of predicting the future, things can go right and things can go wrong. I'd like to think that we've had a pretty good track record. So in 2001, we did data mining. Data mining still to this day underpins personalization of the internet, online shopping, everything that makes the internet yours in your browser. Universal translation is something that has, back in 2004, I don't think we truly understood the power of it, meaning I don't think we understood that you could take your phone, take a picture of a menu, and have it translated immediately. And today you can do it through Google Translate, you have ChatGPT, all kinds of things. Next, intelligent software assistants. I'm sure if I said some words, a lot of phones would be going off right now. But back in 2009, Siri was a tiny little company, though it was gaining a lot of traction, and then it was purchased by Apple. Lastly, we have satellite mega constellations. Since 2020, the number of satellites in the sky have nearly tripled. 2/3 of that is SpaceX's Starlink constellation, but that's quite a large number in about 5 years. So as I mentioned, when you try to predict the future, things can go right and things can go wrong. But in science, when things go wrong, it can be a good thing. So a few things that never really went anywhere. Airborne networks. This was a goal to try to get rid of ground-based radar and control towers. The concept was that aircrafts, the helicopters, airplanes, would communicate with each other. They would share information about takeoff, landing, flight patterns, and they'd be able to control all of this by themselves. Obviously, that did not work, and there are over 50,000 air traffic controllers around the world. Social TV, I'm sure we did all use this in 2020. This was your watch party on Netflix, on Disney. I had a blip of fame when we could talk to each other while a show was playing, comment on the show. But outside of that, it didn't really go anywhere. Magic Leap was a virtual reality headset that was very popular in 2015. Lost a lot of money, didn't go anywhere, but of course the technology is still there as Meta and Google, Apple are all trying to build new headsets. Solar City's Gigafactory was one of the largest factories for solar panels being built in 2016 in New York City. It lost billions of dollars, even though it was backed by the US government, and Tesla ended up buying it for solar panels for the roofs, also went nowhere. So, that's basically a gist of what our 10 breakthroughs kind of look like. So are you ready for the new list of 2025? Oh, good, you're awake. Fantastic. Excellent. All right. Verisi Rubin Observatory. So this is a project that is happening down in Chile. It is the largest digital camera that's ever built. It will be finished by the middle of 2025. It's about the size of a small car. Verisi Rubin was an astronomer who noticed that in distant stars and galaxies, they were moving so fast that you would think that they would fling themselves outside of the galaxy. But some huge gravitational pull was actually keeping them there. And to this day, that was our best evidence of dark matter. So this 10-year-long project is going to take place where it takes pictures every single night. And after 10 years, hopefully we'll have the most detailed 3D rendering of the Milky Way. And this way we'll see our cosmic web and truly start to understand what dark matter is. Generative AI search. So I think if we were at the Grammys, this would be your hot new artist, right? I'm sure everybody here has done a generative AI search. What's kind of interesting about it now is that you don't even have to use an app to go to it. If you Google something or any major search engine, you have a Gen AI summary that comes up for you automatically. It's meant to be a little bit more conversational, it's supposed to be very accessible, but it does fall into the patterns that Gen AI does, which is it's just aggregating your content. It could be wrong, it could be right, but it's helpful to help you understand things. And then Gen AI itself will come back through this list many, many times. There we go. Okay, great. Small language models. So we just talked about a large language model, LLMs, right? That takes a lot of data. It takes a lot of energy. Small language models are actually growing ever popular. The reason is because they take less energy, it takes less data to train, and they can be more precise. So for example, if you worked in a law office and you had to build contracts, you would use this because you wouldn't necessarily need information on how to bake a cake or Disney princesses, you would just have this. Or if you incorporated this into a chatbot for a bank, it wouldn't regurgitate sensitive information and it wouldn't regurgitate misinformation that's not applicable to your specific scenario and your clients. It's more energy efficient and it's actually less costly to produce. Cattle burping. All right, so this is a fun one. So cows burp a lot, and when they burp methane. This makes them one of the largest producers of methane in agriculture. So the greenhouse gases are massive with cows. So in the recent years, a lot of people have talked about cutting down on meat consumption, but truly as countries get more rich, the demand for these kind of foods actually goes up. So a lot of companies have started making remedies, pills that you can put into food, water, things like that, that basically cut down on the amount of methane that cows produce, and it actually is safe for humans to consume. So there's a company called Bovaer. It's available in 55 countries already, where the pill targets an enzyme that produces methane from hydrogen and carbon dioxide, and it cuts down the methane by about 30%. There are some other startups using red seaweed as an alternative, cutting down, hopefully, the amount of methane by 50 to 80%. Robotaxis. Has anybody in here taken a self-driving car? One. Just one? Two? Okay. Have either of you called a robotaxi before? Not yet. You have? Okay, that is actually quite shocking. That's pretty cool. So, all right. So, we all know about self-driving cars. Robotaxis are also growing in huge popularity. You can call a few robotaxis around the world now in certain cities. But it's how quickly they're expanding that's really interesting. So you have a company in China called WeRide that is moving into not only Singapore, but the Middle East and the US. And if you know US and Chinese tensions, that is actually quite a feat. American company Waymo will start producing in Austin in the middle of this year. And both Tesla and Amazon want to launch robotaxis in California, Nevada, and Texas. What's kind of cool about this is using Gen AI, they've been able to train these cars on algorithms and scenarios that we're not able to reproduce, like things that could get you into an accident or things that just rarely happen, things that would be a little bit too dangerous for humans. So this synthetic data can train the car essentially for all of these scenarios. They've been building cars that are specific to one city, but because of that formula, you can easily shift it to another one. Cleaner jet fuel. So the aviation industry, much like the agricultural industry, has had a really hard time cutting down on greenhouse gas emissions. Biofuels have been around for a long time, but alternatives are coming up very quickly. So currently biofuels are mixed with petroleum. They do cut down the amount of carbon dioxide that gets produced, but ultimately the goal is that it would go 100% biofuel without having to retrofit the jets and helicopters. A couple of companies to watch out for. There's 12 based out of Washington State that actually captures carbon dioxide from the air. It basically is able to mix it with water, and using electricity and a metal catalyst, it separates all of this to create new chemicals, including jet fuel. Another company called LanzaJet, which was on our 15 climate tech companies of 2024, takes ethanol from corn and sugar, and it's able to turn it into jet fuel. It's also able to use municipal and commercial waste. And what's interesting about this kind of productivity, this technology, is it's actually shaping policies around the world. So here in the EU, by 2050, 70% of your jet fuel will have to either be low emission or complete biofuels, which is great. Fast learning robots. So as you have already seen some robots today, the challenge with fast learning robots have always truly been that robots can do tasks very well. Traditionally, they've only been able to do one task in a stagnant scenario. So what happens when you need to teach a robot to multitask in ever-changing scenarios? The data has never really helped it grow. The most difficult thing about robots is for it to move through the world safely, right? And you can't train that using just text and images. You do actually need spatial reasoning, 3D maps, you need audio, you need video, and even if you do use video to accomplish the task, most likely that person has to be hooked up to sensors. The sensors have to send data to the robot has to learn it, and then you're back at still one task. So, using generative AI, roboticists have been able to train these new algorithms to teach robots how to learn. And from that, they've been able to learn multiple tasks and have scenarios shift while they're learning them. The goal is that one day, these robots will learn how to move around this world in even new environments they've never heard about and do tasks that they were never programmed to do. All right, we have 3 more 10 breakthroughs here for you. So long-acting HIV prevention meds. Over 1 million people a year still contract HIV globally, so this is still a worldwide pandemic. I'm sure you know there's some remedies out there known as PrEP, which is very successful. PrEP is a pill that you take daily, or it's an injection. The problem with this is that pills, if you don't take it daily and you come in contact with the virus, it's very dangerous. And then the injection itself has to be administered well in advance, which means you don't really know when you'll come into contact with the virus. There's a new drug called lenacapavir, developed by Gilead, and it has already been tested on 5,000 women in Uganda and South Africa with a 100% success rate. Basically, it targets a structure in the virus that prevents it from reproducing and entering a human cell, but it can also prevent the reproduced cells from spreading even further. They've spread the tests now even further to different genders and sexual orientations, and it's been great. So, green steel. All right, we use a lot of steel in this world, and steel is a very dirty business. So for every ton of steel you make 2 tons of carbon dioxide. Huge problem, right? So, and the reason is because when you convert iron ore into iron, you are using typically you're burning coal. There's a company that is now out of Sweden called Stegra, who plans on finishing their factory this year and producing green steel by the end of 2026. The way that they do this is they would use hydrogen gas to coax out oxygen. Then they would use electrolysis and electricity from both wind and hydropower to separate the water, thus turning iron ore into iron. There's another spin-out company from MIT called Boston Metal, I believe, that basically just runs an electric current through iron ore, breaking the bonds to make iron. And so all of this would really clean up the steel-making industry. Stem cell therapies that work. So this is the last one. We've been reporting on stem cell therapies for a really, really long time, and they truly have come a long way. You no longer need access to an embryo. You can make new cells from skin or even all kinds of materials. The problem is that this has really failed to translate into any medical treatment that's been useful, except now. So you have type 1 diabetes and you have epilepsy. One of our journalists talked to a patient who had been running trials, and they were being administered a neuron that was altered in the lab that controlled the electrical signals in his brain. He was having seizures once a day, and they've now been cut down to once a week. For type 1 diabetes, scientists have been able to take cells from one person, turn them into stem cells, coax that cell into becoming the kind of cell that produces insulin from your pancreas, put it back into the patient, and for the first time, patients have actually been able to produce their own insulin. So this could potentially do away with type 1 diabetes and epilepsy. All right, so there you have it. So that's basically the list that we have here. I hope you did learn some new things, and I hope you have heard of some other things. But of course, you know, as I mentioned, the world changes really fast these days, and it's really hard to predict what will stay and what won't. So a few things that didn't make it on the list that you might or might not have heard of: virtual power plants. It's a virtual conglomeration of small-scale power units that measure how much power is being used in a certain city or a certain group of houses or anything like that. This is very real. There's a project in Baltimore that's powering some houses by F-150 trucks. The problem with this is that it has gotten some buzz in some countries, but they've really failed to grow this on a mass scale where people can use it. It would be great, though, because the second that it measures that you're using too much electricity from one source, it could add in renewable resources for you to use. AI agents. We talked about this briefly with a few speakers earlier. I'm sure we would all love this. AI agents are basically AI assistants, right? They basically would help schedule your meetings, send your emails, your vacations, and this is all great. It's an excellent concept, but right now it's too open. There's too many variables happening with not only the internet, but just how AI interacts with each other for it to be super, super successful. Though I've had several people on the other EmTechs be like, I can't believe this wasn't on the list. Maybe one day, hopefully. All right, so EVTOLs. So this stands for electrical vertical takeoff landing aircraft. So you can think about it like a big drone. These are not for personal use. This is for commercial use, but commercial use, like it could be for a city, it could be a shuttle from downtown to the airport, or for emergency vehicles from a place to the hospital. What's interesting is how quickly governments are changing the licenses for not only the production, but for them to fly in an airspace, for them to sell. All over the world, countries have been exploring this, but nothing has truly gone into production and has been utilized, so we can't really say that it's going to make a big difference just yet. So in that spirit, if you would take out your phones, we do have a voting thing we would like to do for the 11th breakthrough here. So we have brain-computer interfaces, which are chips that get put into your brain. The idea is that this would be for patients who are paralyzed to be able to get online, to shop, to communicate better in helping them live their lives. Methane detecting satellites, so obviously cows are not the only things that emit methane. Quite often oil and gas companies and factories do leak gas, so these satellites would help detect these problems and fix, or tell the companies to fix the leak. Hyper-realistic deepfakes we talked about with Artemis. We'll have a talk tomorrow from Peter Hill from Synthesia. Basically, deepfakes of you, these are by choice. We're not discussing sort of the piracy of it just yet. where it would be your virtual assistant, it's your avatar and very much your voice and everything. You used to have to be able to go to the studio to do this, but now you can do it with certain apps like Synthesia at home. Continuous glucose monitors. So these have been around for a long time, but now they're over the counter and everybody has a lot of access to them. These obviously, the name of it is pretty self-explanatory, but it would save lives quite a lot as you can monitor your glucose while you're sleeping. So in the spirit of tech review, we'd love for you to vote and let us know what you think. And lastly, here, shameless plug. If you do not follow us and you do not subscribe to us, please do. We have things all over the world. I just got a message from an innovator who was like, I did not know you were in Athens. I would have come because I am in Germany. So do follow along for our articles, for our any news on our innovators, on our EmTechs, our newsletters, and everything. So I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and we're always open to feedback, so just hop online and check us out. Thank you.